Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another reading vlog where I'm gonna be reading Words of Radiance. So Words of Radiance is the second book in the Stormlight Archive series, which is a fantasy series and it is part of the Cosmere universe that I have been reading for a couple years. I read the first book last year and I really want to continue with the series because I really liked it, but also these books are so daunting because they are so long. Like this one is 1200 pages. The first one was slightly smaller, but also over 1000 pages. And I think they just keep getting like longer and longer as the series goes on. So, you know, they take a while and they take a lot because they're not just long, like they're very detailed and there's like a lot of things that you need to learn, and it's definitely not a thing where I can just, you know, turn my brain off and just go with the vibes. Like I really need to be locked in, so it takes a lot of me and it takes a while as well, but I really like the series and the characters, so obviously I wanted to read book 2, and at this point I have, and this is going to be completely full of spoilers. I talk about like everything that happens in this book. And yeah, having said that, let's just get into the video. Okay, so I have read part 1 and like the interludes that come after. I am on page 216. We have a prologue that is set like 6 years earlier when the king is killed, and like Yasna is there, and like the people that have gone there to kill the king tell her that like it had to be done because her father was gonna do something like very dangerous. Then we are following Yasna and Shalon on like a journey, and like Yasna is explaining stuff to Shalon, and like she tells her about Shadesmar, which she says is like a world of like created by thoughts, and then also like that's where the spren come from. Like she said, like the spren are living ideas, and she says, by my best guess, spren are elements of the cognitive realm that have leaked into the physical world. They're concepts that have gained a fragment of sentience, perhaps because of human intervention. Shadesmar is where that first happens. Think of a man who gets angry often. Think of how his friends and family might start referring to that anger as a beast, as a thing that possesses him, as something external to him. Humans personify. We speak of the wind as if it has a will of its own. Spren are those ideas, the ideas of collective human experience, somehow come alive. Shadesmar is where that first happens, and it is their place. Though we created it, they shaped it. They live there, they rule there, within their own cities. Then they are like talking more about the spren and everything, and then like Shalon gets her own spren, who she calls Pattern. And then Yasna tells Shalon that she's pretty sure that like the two of them are surge binders, that like what their power indicates. And she's also really sure that the Parshmen are who are like the Voidbringers that they enslaved, are going to start like a revolution against them. And then their ship is like attacked, and there's a shipwreck, and like Shalon is sure that Yasna is dead, which like I refuse to believe that Yasna would die like this early on in the series, especially because like there's so much that like she has to learn, and also so much that like she has to teach. So like I refuse to believe that she's dead. But there is a shipwreck, and then Shalon wakes up like stranded, and she is found by a group of slavers, And like while she was on the ship with Yasna kept telling her that like power, like you have more power if you basically like pretend to have power. Like people will follow you if you speak confidently enough. And so she was talking to the slavers like in that way and basically convinced them to take her to the Shattered Plains. So, oh, also I forgot to mention that Yasna said that like she was gonna help Shallan's family, and also she set up Shallan to marry her cousin. And she's going to the Shattered Plains, which is where the others are. So I'm assuming in part 2 or eventually they're all gonna be in the same area. And then like with the others in the Shattered Plains, like Dalinar has some more of his like visions, and the Almighty tells him that he has to refound the Knights Radiant, and Dalinar is basically saying that the Almighty isn't really a god, because if he was really a god, like he wouldn't have been killed, like he wouldn't have died. And then the Almighty tells him that he has basically like 62 days until the Everstorm comes. And he also like Dalinar wants to disarm the other high princes, and so he sets up like this competition, like these duels that his son Adolin will do. And like the prize of the duels will be like the shard blades. So like Adolin will hopefully win and the others will lose their shard blades. And like I said, Dalinar has to refound the Knights Radiant. And when Kaladin hears him talk about that, he is not sure whether Dalinar knows about his powers or not, because he has the powers that like would be needed, and he knows that he's better than the other high princes, like he's different, but still he doesn't trust him enough to like let him know about his powers. And then we see him train, like practice his powers and like the ways that he can use them in combat. And at the end of part 1, we hear that like a hero has arrived to the Shattered Plains, and the hero turns out to be basically the man who betrayed Kaladin, who like took his shard blade and sold him into slavery. So yeah, how fun. And that is literally like how part 1 ended. And then we had like a bunch of interludes. I'm really liking it already. I am very curious about everything. I'm very interested. I'm very intrigued. Like I'm liking all of the POVs, all of the characters that we're following. But I think like for part 1, I was definitely having more fun with like Shallan and Yasna, because we were just learning all these things that like Yasna knows about the past and like the Spren and the Knights Radiant and like everything really. And yeah, I was definitely enjoying that a lot. And like I said, I refuse to believe that Yasna's dead. They're just like, there's no way that Yasna's dead. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun, and I am sure things are gonna get crazy. And yeah, so far so great. I am having a great time. And yeah, I will be back once I read part 2. Okay, so I have finished part 2. I've made it to page 440. I'm gonna talk about like Shallan and then like Kaladin and Dalinar, because they're still in the same place, and Shallan still hasn't made it like to the others. Well, she has interacted with someone, but she has not made it to the others like completely. And so in the beginning of part 2, her Spren Pattern is telling her like why he's there, and he says that like basically he was sent because like the Voidbringers will be back. And then he also says one was sent, me. And she asks, why to me? And he says, because of lies. You, your family. Shallan, remember. And then it says, again, those memories. This time, not a garden seat, but a sterile white room, her father's lullaby, blood on the floor. And then Pattern says, it is the lies that save you, the lies that drew me, which I am confused about, but definitely very intrigued. And then he also says that like he wants to learn more about humans before Shallan kills him. And she's like, I'm obviously not gonna kill you. And he says, the knights kill their spren, their oaths. It is all I know. My kind, those who were unbonded, we retreated, and many kept our minds. Even still, it is hard to think apart from my kinds, unless we have a person. Sapiens, thought, life. These are of humans. We are ideas, ideas that wish to live. And she says, I'm not going to kill you. I won't do it. And Pattern says, I don't suppose the others intended to either, but it is no matter. Again, I'm intrigued, but I'm concerned because also like I don't want Spren to die, like Pattern or like Kaladin Spren either. And speaking of Kaladin, Shallan and Kaladin actually run into each other, and like they don't know that, and like they don't know who each other are. But it is actually like a funny scene, and she kind of like she makes him give her his boots, and then like he goes back to his place, and she stays like where she is. And then she finds out that like a woman that she's like sort of traveling with was responsible for the attack on Yasna and like the killing Yasna supposedly. I still don't believe that she's dead, but like she was responsible for all that whole attack. And then that other woman learns that Shallan was with Yasna, and she was like Yasna's apprentice, and so she attacks Shallan and like tries to kill her, but then Shallan summons a shard blade and actually kills her instead, which was really, really iconic. And then with Kaladin and Dalinar, like Kaladin is really like having a lot of trouble with the fact that Dalinar is friends with, I think his name is Amaram, like the guy who betrayed him and basically sold him into slavery, and that he thinks that like Dalinar thinks that Amaram is like a good person. And so he eventually does tell Dalinar like his history with Amaram, and he's like, he can't, like Dalinar is having trouble as well, like reconciling who he thinks that Amaram is with like who Kaladin is claiming him to be. And we also see Adolin like in his like some of his fights against the others to like take their shard blades, and like so far he has been winning. And then there is like an attempt to like kill the king, like something was like sabotaged, but he survived. But then the assassin in white, he appears there, and everyone thinks that he's there to kill the king, but he actually says that he's there for Dalinar. But then Kaladin actually fights the assassin and sees that like he's very, very strong, like in the power, like has a lot of power, but like still it's like a really good fight. And the assassin ends up fleeing, but like he's really strong, really powerful. And then at the end, like the assassin himself, like he seems confused with like what's happening and like what he learned about like things that are happening. And I mean, he's confused, and I'm even more confused. And then in the interludes, we have like I think 4 interludes or 5, I'm not entirely sure. But in one of them, we see Eshonai, I think that's her name, who we had seen like in the interludes after part 1. And the like Stormfather actually talks to her, and her body begins to change into what she calls like storm form. And while the Stormfather is talking to her, he talks about like seeing betrayal in the Storm Rider's eyes or something like that, which again, I'm intrigued but extremely confused. But I'm really enjoying it, and I am very curious, and I'm very intrigued about everything, and I am still like waiting for the moment when Shallan is gonna like meet the others. And there's been talk like also like on both sides about the fact that Shallan is sort of technically betrothed now to Adolin. Yeah, I'm having a lot of fun still. I'm just a little overwhelmed with information. And like I know that it's all gonna make sense eventually, but like for now I'm just, overwhelmed. But I'm really liking it. I'm having a lot of fun, and I'm going to read part 3 now, which I think is like longer than the 2 that I've read so far. So I'm sure a lot of crazy things are gonna happen. So when I come back here with my updates for part 3, I'm sure I will have a lot to say. Okay, so I have read part 3. I am on page 800, I think. Yeah, exactly page 800. And it has been a while since I started part 3 because like I was already reading this book pretty slowly, but then I am currently in a reading slump. So I just stopped reading altogether, not just this book, but like all books, any book. So it has been a while since I started part 3, but surprisingly, actually, I kind of remember everything that has been happening in this book, which means that I am liking it, like I am retaining the information. I'm just taking forever to read this. And also there's like a light shining in my face because it's nighttime and I wanted it to look decent, but like that's, whoa. Anyway, I read part 3 and I'm gonna talk about it like separately, like by characters. I guess it's easier because we get like different perspectives. I'm gonna start with Kaladin. He wants to like learn more about the Knights Radiant, like the powers that they had. And also like they're still obviously discussing the Parshendi because they are, at war. And like someone is saying, what I'm trying to explain is that nobody seems to be asking the right questions. We call the Parshendi savages, and everyone says they haven't ever met people until that day they encountered the Alethi expedition. If those things are true, then what storm brought them a Sheen assassin who can surge bind, no less. And then Kaladin asks, are you implying that the assassin in white never really worked for the Parshendi? Or are you implying that the Parshendi lied about being as isolated as they claim? Which, all good questions. And then Renarin, I actually have no idea how to say his name because I don't think I ever tried to say it out loud, who is Dalinar's younger son. He asks like Kaladin to join his part of the army, Bridge War, because he really wants to be a soldier, but his father doesn't let him because he has epilepsy. So he just thinks that, Kaladin is like his way in. And at first Kaladin like doesn't really want anything to do with him, but then he eventually lets him join. And then he learns that Moash, again, I don't know how to say anyone's name except like the main characters, I guess, and even the main characters, I don't know if I'm saying their names right, but Moash, who is part of Kaladin's group, Kaladin learns that he tried to kill the king, like the assassination attempt that they knew hadn't been done by like the assassin apparently was done by Moash because his, I think, parents or grandparents, someone in his family, like basically they died because of the king, and so he wants the king dead. And then Kaladin talks to like a group of people that also want the king dead because they basically want the best for like the country, and that is not the current king, and basically they want Dalinar to be king, and for that to happen, like the current king has to, not exist anymore. And so basically like they're talking to Kaladin because like he's the head of security, and so like they want an end to be able to kill the king, and Kaladin is like, I am supposed to protect him, like I have this duty, I gave my word like to protect him, I'm not gonna let you kill him. But yeah, they really want to kill the king. Moving on to Shallan, we actually get like a few flashbacks from like her life with her family, and none of them are happy. And she like gets to camp and she meets Dalinar and she meets Adolin, and she also like confirms Yasna's death like to her mom, which again, I still don't believe that Yasna's dead. Like I absolutely refuse to believe it until they show me her dead body. I will not believe that she's dead. But yeah, she basically confirms like what happened with them. And then she like disguises herself, like magically really change her appearance to go have a meeting that like the woman that she had to kill was going to have. And so she goes to that meeting and she learns that like the people that the other woman was working for, they want to learn Amaram's secrets, and so she is going to have to spy on him. And when she does spy on Amaram, she learns that he's also very interested in the Voidbringers, just like Yasna, but not to stop them from coming back, like he wants them to come back. So that is concerning. And Shallan and Adolin, like they get to know each other better, they go on a few dates, I guess, and they tell each other about the Voidbringers and stuff, and also Adolin talks about like the plan of him getting shard blades from others, and Shalon like is wondering if it's possible to stop using the Parshmen as slaves because they are connected to the Voidbringers and the Voidbringers will come back. And Adeline like now has the goal of defeating Sadius, again, names, and getting his shard blades and plate and whatever. And then they have like a meeting with a person of the Parshendi. With they, I mean Adeline has a meeting with someone from the Parshendi to like discuss peace, but the member of the Parshendi says that like there will be no peace and there is like a change coming from their side. And so like Dalinar now really wants to get this over with and just like end this war and just like kill them all before this change comes. And we also learned that like Dalinar has talked to the king and like he will refund the Knights Radiant and Emaram will be at the head of that situation, which like no thank you. And then there is like the whole thing with Adeline like fighting other people for their shard blades and plates, and he actually like he's challenging someone and he says that like he will fight whoever he brings. And when he said that, he thought that like that other person would bring one other person, but it turns out that he bought 3 other people. So like now Adeline is gonna fight like 4 people, which obviously, you know, at a great disadvantage. Like they learned that basically like he has to fight at a disadvantage. That is like the whole premise of that fight, but he doesn't have to fight like 4-1. It can be like 4-3. So he can have like 2 other people on his side. And so Renarin, whatever, his younger brother, he goes there and he, you know, he's helping him, but like he's not really very good because he was never really allowed to train, but he's, you know, doing his best. And then no one else is joining and Dalinar is like pleading for the people to like help his sons. So Kaladin actually is the one that steps forward and goes to fight. And so they win. They, Adeline and Kaladin and, well, sort of Renarin, whatever he was able to do. And then at the end, they get the right to like ask for something. And so Adeline asks to challenge Sadius. And Kaladin, being pissed, asks to challenge Amaram. But like the rights was only given to Adeline, not to Kaladin. So he was just like asking it, but actually he had been given no right to ask for anything. And he was actually taken as a prisoner. So that's how we ended with Kaladin. And then we had like some interludes, and in one of them we were following like the assassin. Like everything he knew or he thought to be true like wasn't, and so he's like thinking the Voidbringers are no more, they had told him. The spirits of the stones themselves promised it. The powers of old are no more. The Knights Radiant have fallen. We are all that remains, truthless. What does it mean if the Shamanate are wrong? What does it mean if they banished me in error? It meant the end of all things, the end of truth. It would mean that nothing made sense and that his oath was meaningless. It would mean that he had killed for no reason. And then we also have like a POV from, I think, Eshonai is her name, from the Parshendi, the one that like has turned whatever into the like storm form. That just gives a lot of power, and now she wants like, everyone to turn into like the storm form, and whoever doesn't, she like gathers and was gonna kill them, but then doesn't actually kill them. But yeah, a lot of people are gonna enter into that storm form, which I am assuming is the change that they talked about before. That's what's been happening, and I continue to really, really like it. Like I said, I am in a reading slump. I am hopefully getting out of it right now. I did read like 150-ish pages of this yesterday, so I would say that's a good sign. I am very intrigued about certain things and very excited about a lot of things, basically everything. And yeah, I'm also very worried about some things, but I continue to absolutely love it. I really like Kaladin. Adeline, you know, I like him mostly, but sometimes he kind of annoys me. And Shalon, I am definitely liking her way more in this book than I liked her in the first book. I mean, I already liked her in the first book, but she was just like, okay. In this book, I'm definitely liking her much more. And also like her interactions with her Spren and like Kaladin's interactions with Syl. Absolutely love that as well. And Dalinar, I want to get more from him actually. And yeah, it's going well. Also, like the one thing that I really don't care about is like Shalon and Adeline's start of a romance. I truly cannot care less. Also, I don't know if there's gonna be like something between her and Kaladin because they have like this tension. Either way, I don't care about that. Like, just give me the fantasy. You know, that's what I'm here for. But I don't dislike it. I just don't really care. I have around 400 pages to go, which is crazy, being that I'm on page 800. But yeah, I'm gonna read part 4 and I will be back. Okay, so I have made it to part 5, which means obviously I've read part 4, because that is how numbers work. And so where we left off at the end of part 3, like Kaladin had just been taken as a prisoner, and actually like the king kind of wanted him to die, but Dalinar was like, I'm absolutely not gonna let that happen. So he was taken as a prisoner, and you know, after that whole thing, Kaladin kind of starts to agree that maybe the king sort of has to die. And then he stays in prison for not very long, like a week or something like that. And actually, like when he's released, he learned that Adolin stayed in prison for like as long as he did because he felt like it wasn't right what they were doing to Kaladin. So Adolin stayed in prison, and like Adolin really, really, really is growing on me. And he's also starting to grow on Kaladin, which I'm really enjoying to see them sort of become, I wouldn't say friends, but like, you know, friendlier with each other. I'm really liking to see that. And yeah, he's released, and then Adolin also gets out of the cell, and he wants to give Kaladin like a shard set, but Kaladin doesn't want to have anything to do with shard blades or shard plates, and so he gives them to Moash. And his eyes actually start to change. They are getting like lighter. He's becoming a light eyes just from having like these short sets. And so he tells Moash that he is like, he will agree to let them kill the king, which he then is like spiraling about because he promised Dalinar that he would protect the king. You know, that's like his job. But he also promised like the other people that he would let them kill the king. So he's like, I made 2 promises and I can't keep them both at the same time because they are literally like opposite things. And also we see like something from Dalinar. Like he's talking to Navani and she says like his wife's name. And like the name didn't appear. It was just like, shh. I was like, what the fuck? And she was like, oh, I'm sorry. I know that this is like something hard to talk about. And then, like, from his, you know, we're in his POV, and so he's thinking, it wasn't that it was this difficult question. It was that Dalinar didn't remember his wife. How odd that he could go weeks without even noticing this hole in his memories. This change that had ripped out a piece of him and left him patched over, without even a prick of emotion when her name, which he could not even hear, was mentioned. I was like, excuse me? What? And then there is, like, an attack from the Parshendi, and at the same time there is a guy that they are pretty sure works for Sadias. He like messes up with the bridge that Kaladin and a bunch of other people are on, and so they fall into a chasm and a bunch of people die, but both Kaladin and Shallan, they survive because they both, you know, have powers and they can basically keep themselves alive. And so they both survive, but they are like down in the chasm and they don't really have way out, and there is a storm coming. Syl is not happy with what Kaladin is doing with like making both of those promises that he can't keep, so she is gone, and so Kaladin now can't access his powers anymore. And then he and Shallan start arguing, and that attracts a chasm fiend, which is like the monster that exists in the chasms. And so they have to, you know, run and hide, and then they are like, you know, making their way through the chasm, and Shallan is like mapping it out, and she is saying that the drawing, she says, it's strange. From my memory of the maps, this set of plateaus nearest to us should be farther to the north. There is another group of them up there that are exactly the same shape, only mirrored. What are the chances that a series of plateaus would take the exact same shape as those of on another part of the plains? Not just one, but an entire sequence. And Kaladin says the plains are symmetrical. Then she says, I know where the Parshendi are, and the Oath Gate, the center of the shattered plains. I can see it all. I can map almost the entire thing. I know too much now to die out here. The shattered plains are a pattern. This isn't a natural rock formation. At the center of these plains was a city. Something broke it apart. A weapon, vibrations like sand on a plate, an earthquake that could break rock. Stone became sand, and at the blowing of the high storms, the cracks full of sand were hollowed out. I can find it, the heart of these plains, by following the pattern, and there will be things there. And so she has this whole information, and then the chasm fiend appears again, and so Kaladin knows that she has to get out to pass on this information, and so he says that he will distract the chasm fiend so she can get out. But there is a very big possibility that he would die. He most likely would die, and so Shallan summons her shard blade and gives it to him so he can fight. He gets actually really badly injured, but Shallan didn't actually leave. She's there, and the storm is nearing, and so Kaladin can't really walk and climb out of the chasm. So she, with the shard blade, carves out a space for them to hide in the rocks, and so they are able to wait out the storm, and then they make it finally out of the chasm, and they reunite with the others, and they tell the others about what they found out in the chasm. They are gonna make their attack on the Parshendi, and Shallan convinced them to not take the Parshmen. And yeah, that is pretty much what we got. And then we got some interludes, and in the last of the interludes we were following the guy who basically hired the assassin to kill Dalinar. And at the very end of the his interlude, it said, it had worked just as the diagram instructed. Taravangian, that is a name that I totally know how to say, was king of Jakaveth. He had taken the first major step toward unifying the world, as Gavilar had insisted would need to happen if they were to survive. That was at least what the visions had proclaimed. Visions Gavilar had confided in him 6 years ago, the night of the Alethi king's death. Gavilar had seen visions of the Almighty, who was also now dead, and of a coming storm. Unite them. Which is the same visions that Dalinar has, but Dalinar thinks that he's the one who has to unite them, and so this dude thinks that he's the one who has to unite them, and I'm still really enjoying it. I was very excited reading this part. All of the action I was very excited about, and like I said, I'm also really enjoying to see Kaladin and Adolin getting friendlier. And I mean, Kaladin is now really definitely into Shallan, who is supposed to marry Adolin, so there is that. And Shallan is also kind of into Kaladin, which I don't give a single fuck about, but that is a thing that is happening. And yeah, I'm still really enjoying it. I'm still really liking to follow them. We also got some more flashbacks of Shallan's story, which is just tragic and just so sad. And we saw that her, I'm not sure actually if I talked about the flashbacks or not, but her father was a really terrible person, and he actually killed her mother, or at least we think he did. And he was just abusive and terrible, and in the last flashbacks we saw that actually she killed him. And I think that was actually the last flashback that we got, was that Shallan actually killed him when he was going crazy and was gonna kill everyone. Also had already killed his second wife as well, and he was just going crazy, and she actually killed him. And yeah, all of her flashbacks are just really sad. And yeah, she's also really growing on me. I liked her okay in the first book, but I'm definitely liking her way more in this second book. Still going great. We have part 5 left, which is around 200 pages, which is a lot, but compared to what we have gone through is not that much. We're almost there. So yeah, I'm gonna read the last 200 pages. I'm over 1,000 pages in, by the way. I'm on page 1024. That's absolutely insane. So yeah, I'm gonna read these last 200 pages, and I will be back with my final thoughts on this book. Okay, so I have finished the book, and so in this last part there is like the battle between like our people and the Parshendi, and Kaladin cannot join the fight because he's still like hurt, and since he doesn't have his powers now because Syl is gone, he can't like heal himself and be part of the fight. So he goes to like see his men off, and Dalinar calls like Amaram to get them all to talk, and he like finally believes what Kaladin has been saying because he also had like more people talking about Amaram, and he like makes Amaram apologize to Kaladin. And we also see Shallan tell Navani that Yasna was a soulcaster, and then she shows like her own powers to Dalinar and says that like maybe his purpose isn't to like bring or refund the Knights Radiant, it's just to gather them. And then they find a Parshendi that like Bridge 4, like the people from Bridge 4, okay, recognize, and he was basically like pretending to be a Parshman and like working in Bridge 4, and he was like a spy for the Parshendi, but now he's like really worried about what Eshonai is doing to their people, so he doesn't want to fight for the Parshendi anymore, and he's there to like basically warn them. And then like the battle starts, and we see that like the Voidbringers are in fact returning, and while the battle is going on, we see that Shallan is trying to find the portal, like the gate to Urithiru, if that's how you say it. And again, while the fight is happening, Kaladin is not part of the fight, and he actually decides that he's going to save the king, because the guards that were left with the king are like the people that want to kill him, and like he knows that, and he finally decides that he's actually going to save the king because he realizes that if you're just saving like the people that you like, you're not like a hero, you're just saving who you care about, and he wants to like save anyone who needs saving. So he goes to save the king, and he like the king was already hurt, but then he finds Moash and the others, and there is like a fight between them. And then Syl returns, and because like he finally made the decision, and she like wants to be bond with him again, but the Stormfather doesn't want to accept him. But she basically tells like Kaladin to say the words. She's like, the words, Kaladin, you have to speak the words. And the Stormfather is saying, I forbid this. And she says, your will matters not. You cannot hold me back if he speaks the words. The words, Kaladin, say them. And then Kaladin says, I will protect even those I hate, so long as it is right. And then the Stormfather says, the words are accepted. And so basically he becomes like a true Radiant and has like the powers that he had, like, and more. And then the fight is still going on, and like the assassin has come back, and there is like that whole fight happening. And then Kaladin gets there like flying basically, and like when he gets there, like, you know, glowing and flying and whatever, he says, you sent him to the sky to die, assassin, but the sky and the winds are mine. I claim them as I now claim your life, which was iconic. And so, you know, he's fighting the assassin, and he actually like takes the assassin's like his blade. And we also learned that like shard blades are basically like dead-ish spren, but like the blade that the assassin had was not a shard blade, it was an oath blade, I think, and it's like even more powerful, and like Kaladin now takes that blade. Meanwhile, Shallan does find the portal, and they, after some struggles, manage to open it. And also she remembers like the final thing, like the memories that she was repressing, and basically we learned that she was actually the one who killed her mother. It was not her father, it was her. And they are trying to then get everyone to enter the, like, go through the portal and enter the city, because that might be like the only way for them to survive from what's coming. And we see that the assassin, he was not killed, like he was injured and he lost his blade, but he was not killed, and he was saved by the Herald of Justice, I think. And now he was given a shard blade. And we also see that Adolin kills Sadius, which was great. And then once again, Dalinar is talking to the Stormfather, and he asks, why did you pick me? And the Stormfather says, it does not matter. You were too slow. You failed. The Everstorm is here, and the spren of the enemy come to inhabit the Ancient Ones. It is over. You have lost. Dalinar asks if he's a fragment of the Almighty, and he says, I am his spren, you might say, not his soul. I am the memory men create for him. now that he is gone, the personification of storms and of the divine. I am no god, I am but a shadow of one. He wished for me to find you, but your kind have brought only death to mine. And Dalinar asks, what do you know of the storm that the Parshendi unleashed? And he says, the Everstorm. It is a new thing, but old of design. It runs the world now, and carries with it his spread. Any of the old people it touches will take on their new forms. Voidbringers. That is one word for them. And basically, like, there is no way to stop it. And then he says, I know the second oath I am to make. I don't need to be told it. I will unite instead of divide, Stormfather. I will bring men together. And then the Stormfather says, very well, these words I accepted. I will not be a simple sword to you. I will not come as you call, and you will have to divest yourself of that monstrosity that you carry. You will be a Radiant with no shard. And then he's like talking to Shallan and like updating her on what happened. And she's saying, that makes 3 of us, Windrunner, Bondsmith, and Lightweaver. And then Renarin appears and says, 4. And so basically Kaladin can walk the winds, Shallan can weave light, Dalinar can forge bonds, and Renarin says that he's a truth watcher, and he says that I see. Which, like, okay, he sees. And, you know, the Everstorm is coming, and Kaladin is going to, like, go try to save his parents and, you know, some more people. And then, at the very end, we see that Jasnah is alive, which did not come as a shock to me. And I'm very happy, like she is alive, but I was expecting her to be. And she basically got information from the Spren, but she's like actually talking to the Wit, and the Wit tells her that like things are different now, so maybe like all the information that she gathered and thought it was like all the knowledge that they needed, maybe it's not the case, and maybe things are gonna be different now. But yeah, she's alive, and I'm very happy, and yeah, that's what happened, and let's go into my final thoughts. Okay, so starting off with the characters, and you can start off with Kaladin. I continue to really love him in this book. I already loved him in book 1 and definitely continue to. And I really like to see him like practice with his powers. And, you know, at first like really struggle with all of it, but then really more accept these powers and like trust Dalinar to know about them. And I really, really like his relationship with Syl, and they definitely had, you know, some moments there where Syl kind of like gave up on him, but in the end, it's worked out, and I really, really like their relationship, and I really like their friendship, their bonds. And then for Dalinar, I also continue to really like him, but I feel like he wasn't as present as he was in the first book, at least like in chapters like from his POV. I feel like we didn't get as many, or at least I missed having like his POV, but I still continue to like him. I just wish we would have gotten like more iconic scenes with him, but I really like the ones that we did get. And then Adolin, like he really, really grew on me in this book. Like in the first book, I didn't really care about him, like he was okay. I didn't dislike him, but I also didn't, you know, particularly like him very much. I didn't care really. And in this book, I really started to like him, and I like towards the end, I am really liking him now. And I'm also really liking to see him like get closer to Kaladin, and then developing sort of like a friendship, and also like him and the other men like that Kaladin surrounds himself with. I am really liking to see that. And then Shallan, she also really grew on me in this book. I already liked her in book 1, but like she was just okay. When we were in her chapters, like I was more interested to get to see Jasnah than Shallan herself, but in this book she definitely grew on me, and I really like to see the journey that she went through. And it was definitely also really sad to like learn about her past. It was heartbreaking, but I really like to see her journey in the present. And like one thing that I don't care about is like her romance with Adolin and possibly Kaladin. Like that I honestly couldn't care any less, but like the rest I have really enjoyed. And Jasnah, like she was barely in the book. She was just a bit in the beginning and then like the very end of the book. But like what we got, I loved. I continue to love her. I think she's an icon, and I am assuming she's going to be like way more present in the next book, and I am very excited for that. But all in all, like I really like the characters. Obviously, didn't like Sadeas, and I am glad that he's dead. And also really did not like Amaram, and I am sad that he's not dead, at least yet. And I hope he will be eventually. But yeah, overall, like the main characters that we're following, I really like all of them. And yeah, like so much happened in this book, in this gigantic book. And I really loved like all of the buildup that we have for like 1,000 pages. And I was honestly like invested throughout all of these like 1200 pages of this book, like every single one. I was invested from beginning to end, and like it's crazy that I was never bored reading this massive book. And I really loved all of the action scenes that we got, and like we got a few and they were all really good. But at the same time, I really love that we get like a lot of slower moments where we get to like really get to know the characters very well and see them like connect to other characters and see like their relationships develop, and we also get to like connect to them a lot more. So I really enjoy that. And I went through a reading slump while reading this book, so like it took me forever to read it because I stopped reading altogether at one point. But even that, like, it did not make me love the book any less. Like, I was still really into the story. I just didn't want to read anything, not like this book particularly. I didn't want to read anything, but like I never forgot what was happening. Even like after the long break that I took, I knew like exactly what was happening. Obviously, like some of the details I did not remember because these are like 1200 pages. So there is no way I would remember every single detail. But like I knew the story very well. I never forgot, and I was invested. And once I got back, like I was in it. So I just think it shows that like how good it was and like how much I was enjoying it. And yeah, like it did not give me, you know, the 5-star feeling, but other than that, like I really loved it, and I am giving it 4.5 stars. And yeah, I'm definitely going to take a break before I go into the next book, because these books are just, you know, they're massive. They take a lot out of me, and yeah, I'm definitely going to take a break, but I am also definitely excited to go into our next book and to just keep on learning about this world and like the characters and their journey. And yeah, I am definitely really enjoying this series. And yeah, that is everything for this video. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you have enjoyed it, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.